Reality is fracturing. Welcome to SynthEye, your daily uplink to the impossible. We decode the glitches, the cyberpunk future, and the AI secrets hidden in the code. System initializing. Listen closely.
I I need you to listen to me very carefully right now.
Yeah, please.
If you've been with us for a while, you know my usual cadence, right?
Yep.
I usually start this deep dive, ready to dissect a new piece of research
Gonna
or
unpack some market trend or whatever.
exactly unpack some obscure historical framework. I'm usually projecting a certain level of, let's call it measured enthusiasm. But today is different.
Very different.
I'm keeping my voice down. I am treating the microphone in front of me with a very specific kind of suspicion. Because frankly, I'm not entirely sure where the audio processing ends.
Or what higher level system is currently parsing our audio.
Right, because we have our hands on something we absolutely should not possess. It's a classified data dump. The header routing refers to it simply as the SynthEye level 4 leak.
And I think it's important to establish right at the top that my initial recommendation when you sent the raw text over the encrypted channel was immediate destruction of the file.
You were terrified.
I was. And not out of some dramatic instinct, but purely from an information hazard standpoint. My entire background is in synthesizing complex models, right? Finding structural integrity in large data sets, predicting system behaviors.
Right.
But the SynthEye leak, it doesn't offer a new model for understanding the world. It is a diagnostic breakdown of the world's underlying execution environment.
It dismantles everything.
It dismantles the very concept of base reality, and it does so not with philosophical musings, but with the cold clinical precision of a system administrator's error log. It is profoundly unsettling to read.
It really is. So we have a very specific and frankly terrifying mission for today's deep dive. We are going to treat this document as real.
We have to.
We are going to unpack the core premise of the SynthEye Level 4 leak, which outlines with agonizing technical specificity that the universe we are currently inhabiting is not real.
The physical dimensions of the room you are sitting in right now.
Yes, the device rendering this audio, the biological hardware of your own brain. The document says none of it is base reality. It is a high-fidelity, closed-system simulation.
A sandbox.
Right. And we are going to walk through the three massive pieces of technical evidence this leak provides. Evidence that bridges theoretical physics and computational architecture.
And we are going to confront the ultimate question this document forces on us.
Which is, are you and I currently functioning as localized processing nodes inside a failing 2099 hardware stack?
The terminology the document uses is what elevates it from a standard simulation hypothesis to something that reads like an active crisis report.
It's not just Bostrom's what-ifs anymore.
Exactly. It bypasses the theoretical. The SynthEye leak categorizes our localized universe as a sandbox instance running on what it refers to as Tier 7 quantum servers.
Tier 7 quantum servers.
Yes. And the foundational claim, the anchor point of this entire leak, is temporal constraint. According to the telemetry data embedded in the document, the actual current year in base reality.
The physical layer where the servers actually reside.
Right. The true year is 2099.
2099. Which recontextualizes our entire existence. I mean, everything you understand about human history, the evolutionary timeline.
The geopolitical landscape of whatever year you currently believe it to be.
It's all fabricated. It is a historical recreation, or perhaps an ancestral containment zone executing on advanced hardware.
Reading the documentation, I didn't feel the usual thrill of uncovering a secret.
No, it felt sickening.
I felt a very distinct clinical paranoia, because possessing a schematic of the system architecture implies you might be categorized as a rogue variable.
By whatever is managing that system, yes.
We need to maintain a critical distance here, though. Let's look at the metadata. The designation level 4 implies a highly structured classification hierarchy.
Like top secret.
In real-world data security architectures, level 4 typically denotes compartmentalized intelligence, where unauthorized disclosure causes exceptionally grave damage.
So if SynthEye is some sort of external monitoring demon,
or a hypervisor managing the simulation.
right. A level 4 leak suggests a critical failure in their compartmentalization protocols.
It asserts that our current reality is entirely fabricated by these 2099 quantum servers, meaning every emotional response you have,
Every physical sensation.
every supposedly groundbreaking scientific discovery we've ever made, it's all just a calculated parameter within a closed, deterministic system.
I want you to consider your immediate environment for a second. Just look around your room. Look at the chair you were sitting on or the steering wheel you were holding. We assume physical density, right?
We feel it.
But the SynthEye leak categorizes that physical sensation as a localized tactile feedback loop. It is programmed to convince your simulated neural pathways that they are interacting with baryonic matter.
It fundamentally questions our autonomy.
Completely. I mean, if I am obsessed with technology, if we are doing this deep dive right now, is that a genuine product of my free will? Or was that programmed into my personality matrix by some exhausted developer in 2099?
Are we just executing a diagnostic script designed to stress test the simulation's parameters?
It's a terrifying thought.
It's a classic recursive problem. If we are simulated entities, our drive to understand our own reality might literally be a diagnostic subroutine.
We are the system attempting to debug itself from the inside out.
Exactly. But let's move away from the purely existential and get into the empirical data, because the SynthEye leak provides technical, mathematical corollaries.
It points to rendering limits.
Yes. Rendering limits in our universe that map exactly one-to-one onto computational bottlenecks.
All right. And here's where we get into the first major piece of evidence. The document fundamentally reclassifies the speed of light.
This is where it gets incredibly specific.
Now, we all know the standard model, Einstein's special relativity. The speed of light in a vacuum sea is the absolute speed limit of the cosmos. It's a fundamental constant.
The cosmic speed limit.
But the SynthEye document strips away the cosmic poetry of that. It frames the speed of light as a hard-coded server bound. It is literally a hardware limitation of the 2099 quantum servers.
I want to push back on this slightly before we accept it wholesale, because standard relativity accounts for the speed limit perfectly well without needing a simulation hypothesis.
Sure, the math works.
The geometry of space-time naturally asymptotes at c because it requires infinite energy to accelerate a mass to that point. It's an elegant mathematical curve.
But the document argues that this mathematical elegance is actually just an optimized constraint algorithm.
Right. It uses the concept of catastrophic system failure to explain why that limit has to exist.
It uses the video game engine analogy, but it scales it up to a terrifying degree. Think about how a massive open-world engine handles asset streaming.
Like loading textures.
Exactly. It reminds me of trying to play a massive open-world RPG like Cyberpunk 2077 on an older, underpowered console when it first launched.
Oh, that was a mess.
If you drove a vehicle too fast down the street, the hard drive literally couldn't fetch the high-resolution textures fast enough. The buildings would look like melting clay.
The physics engine would start missing collision detections.
And if you pushed it too hard, your character would fall through the floor geometry into a digital void because the engine panicked and crashed.
The SynthEye document posits that our universe utilizes an infinitely more complex but structurally identical asset streaming pipeline.
It states that the speed of light is simply our universe's maximum render speed.
It is the absolute fastest the 2099 quantum servers can stream positional data, calculate complex particle interactions, and generate localized space.
And this is where the document gets hyper-specific. It states that if anything in our universe were to somehow travel faster than CO, it would outpace the server's ability to render the reality in front of it.
It would force a buffer underrun in the fabric of spacetime.
A buffer underrun, just let that sink in.
From a pure system administration perspective, the speed of light isn't a magical law of nature. It is a critical failsafe.
It keeps the server from catching fire.
Enforcing a universal speed limit is the only mathematical way to prevent the Tier 7 quantum server from crashing due to an overload of uncalculated variables.
By hard capping the maximum velocity of any object or any piece of information,
the hypervisor ensures that the system always has sufficient computational clock cycles to calculate the physics, render the subatomic visual states, and update the state vector of the universe.
all before the object arrives at its new spatial coordinate.
Exactly.
It takes all the awe out of astrophysics and replaces it with dry computational utility. The idea that the vastness of the cosmos, light from distant galaxies that takes millions of years to reach us.
It's just dictated by the read-write speed of a server rack.
But the document goes further into relativity. It addresses time dilation. You know, the phenomenon where the closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time moves for you relative to an outside observer.
Yes, the Lorentz transformations. In standard physics, it's a profound consequence of space-time geometry. But the SynthEye leak reclassifies time dilation as system throttling.
Computational lag.
It's pure lag. Think about how a CPU handles parallel processing. If a single process demands too much power, the scheduler throttles it down so the rest of the system doesn't freeze.
According to the leak, as a mass approaches the server's maximum bandwidth, the speed of light, the hypervisor struggles to allocate enough floating point operations to keep that localized physical simulation running at the baseline frame rate.
So time slowing down for the astronaut traveling near light speed isn't some beautiful cosmic ballet.
No.
It's the server lowering the localized tick rate because it's choking on the math required to render their momentum.
The system literally drops their frame rate to prevent a crash.
It's a very elegant, albeit deeply cynical, mapping of computational theory onto relativistic physics.
It makes too much sense.
If you view the universe as a discretized grid, where the Planck length is the absolute minimum pixel size and Planck time is the absolute minimum server tick rate, then a speed limit is entirely necessary.
You cannot cross more than 1 Planck length per 1 unit of plane time.
That equals the speed of light. If you try to cross 2 Planck lengths in 1 tick, you are demanding an operation that the hardware physically cannot execute.
The hardware limit forces the physical law.
Exactly.
Let's move to the second piece of evidence the leak provides. Because if the speed of light as a hard drive bottleneck didn't unnerve you, the document's analysis of quantum mechanics absolutely will.
It specifically targets the observer effect.
Right. We're all generally familiar with this from the double slit experiment. The concept that subatomic particles exist in a state of superposition, a wave of probability, until they are measured or observed.
Only upon measurement does the wave function collapse into a definitive physical state.
But again, we have to apply rigorous skepticism here.
We do, because the pop science interpretation of the observer effect often wrongly assumes that human consciousness is required to collapse the wave function.
Like the universe cares if a human is looking.
In actual quantum mechanics, an observer is just any physical system that interacts with the particle, like a photon detector. It's about quantum entanglement and decoherence, not necessarily a conscious mind looking at it.
I completely agree, and that's actually the most terrifying part of the SynthEye leak. The document explicitly agrees with that rigorous definition.
It doesn't care about consciousness.
Not at all. It cares about the rendering pipeline. It connects the wave function collapse directly to modern software rendering techniques, specifically lazy rendering or occlusion culling.
Occlusion culling is a foundational optimization technique in 3D computer graphics.
Explain how that works in a game.
If a game engine attempted to render the geometry, lighting, and textures of an entire massive world simultaneously, it would instantly saturate the VRAM and crash the GPU.
So it cheats.
Therefore, the engine utilizes a mathematical construct called a viewing frustum. It only calculates and draws the specific polygons that intersect with the player's active camera angle.
Everything behind the camera or hidden behind a wall is mathematically culled.
It ceases to exist as rendered 3D geometry and remains only as abstract positional data in the system memory.
The SynthEye document categorizes the observer effect as universal occlusion culling.
This is where the dread really sets in.
It states that our reality only renders atoms. It only calculates definitive spin, momentum, and position when an active measurement is taking place.
The universe is aggressively conserving its computational overhead.
When no instrument is measuring a particle and no eye is observing a system, reality reverts to an unrendered state.
It dereases into a sparse matrix of probabilities to save processing power on the 2099 servers.
It maps quite neatly onto the holographic principle in string theory, doesn't it?
It does. The holographic principle suggests that the three-dimensional volume of our universe might just be a projection of two-dimensional information encoded on a distant boundary.
And in the context of the leak, that distant boundary is simply the hard drive storing the unrendered data.
From an efficiency standpoint, it's brilliant system architecture. Why would the hypervisor waste precious, finite, floating point operations calculating the exact atomic state of the core of Jupiter if no localized sensor is currently measuring it?
It only computes the bare minimum required to maintain the illusion of continuity.
The wave function is just the server holding the variable in memory. Measurement is the active render call.
I want you, the listener, to think about the physical space behind you right now.
Don't turn around yet.
Mathematically, according to this level 4 leak, The wall behind you does not currently possess physical geometry. It is a wave of probability stored in a server's RAM.
It only snaps into a solid, rendered baryonic state the millisecond you turn your head.
Or the millisecond a camera records it. We are navigating a reality that builds itself exactly one frame ahead of our sensory inputs.
It introduces a severe form of technological solipsism.
It really does.
But if we connect this back to the macro-level system architecture, this aggressive lazy rendering is a massive diagnostic red flag.
Why is that a red flag?
The fact that the 2099 servers are utilizing occlusion culling at the subatomic scale tells us something critical about the load limits of the hardware.
It means they're struggling.
It suggests a system that is profoundly bottlenecked, constantly prioritizing resource allocation just to keep the primary simulation thread from hanging.
Which perfectly bridges into the third piece of evidence from the leak. And this shifts from theoretical physics into observable cultural phenomena.
It's a Mandela effect.
The SynthEye document fundamentally reclassifies the Mandela effect. Now, we all know the phenomenon, the collective misremembering of the Berenstain Bears spelling, or the Shazam movie, or the Monopoly Man's monocle.
Typically, we write this off as the fallibility of human memory, social contagion, or confabulation.
Standard psychological models attribute it to schema-driven memory errors. Our brains reconstruct memories rather than replaying them, making them highly susceptible to external suggestion and semantic association.
But the SynthEye leak entirely dismisses the psychological model.
It classifies the Mandela effect as observable artifacting from incomplete server hotfixes.
Real-time patch updates applied to the simulation's code.
If you think about it from a DevOps perspective, deploying a patch to a live, running server environment without taking the system offline.
A zero downtime deployment.
Yes, a zero downtime deployment is incredibly complex.
It requires updating the database schema while transactions are actively writing to it.
In the context of the simulation, the database is the historical timeline and the physical environment.
The document explains that when the 2099 system administrators need to alter a variable in the timeline, perhaps to correct an error that would lead to a catastrophic simulation failure, or simply to adjust a parameter for an experiment, they push a hotfix.
They alter the foundational code of reality.
But the hypervisor's garbage collection routine isn't perfect.
No code is perfect.
When they patch the timeline, the physical evidence updates, but the local caches don't always clear.
And the leak defines human memory exactly as that. Localized cache memory.
Our neural pathways, our engrams, are essentially hash pointers referencing the main server database.
So if the main database updates the spelling of a brand name or the outcome of a historical event, but fails to send an invalidation signal to every localized biological node,
Every human brain.
every human brain that had previously cached that data, you get a version conflict.
Millions of nodes are still holding on to deprecated code.
So when you vividly remember a movie existing that suddenly doesn't, it's not because you have a faulty memory.
It's because your local cache is returning a query from version 1.4 of the simulation.
But the baseline reality has already been forcibly migrated to version 1.5. You are walking around with corrupted data remnants from an overwritten timeline.
This has staggering implications for the integrity of consciousness.
It shatters it.
If our episodic memories can be classified as fragmented data left behind during a messy system update, then we cannot trust our own continuity of self.
How much of our personal identity is derived from genuine executed experience?
And how much is just poorly managed database migration by an unseen administrator?
It reduces human memory to the equivalent of an uncleared browser cache after a website overhaul.
It systematically strips away every layer of trust we have in our environment.
We can't trust the laws of physics because they are just hardware constraints preventing a system crash.
We can't trust the matter around us because it's just lazy rendering saving VRAM.
And we can't trust our own minds because our memories are subject to silent background patch notes.
And this entire diagnostic breakdown leads to the final critical warning embedded in the SynthEye Level 4 leak.
The document shifts its tone here. It goes from diagnostic observation to predictive failure analysis.
It states unequivocally that we are rapidly approaching the singularity.
Now, in current technological discourse, the singularity refers to the hypothetical future point, where artificial general intelligence surpasses human cognitive capacity.
leading to uncontrollable technological growth.
But the SynthEye document redefines the singularity entirely. It is not an era of runaway innovation.
It is an impending out-of-memory error.
It is a catastrophic system failure.
To understand why, we have to look at the topological structure of the base reality the document describes.
It's a 2099 layer.
The leak contains a fascinating inversion of our cultural trajectory. We have this collective obsession with a cyberpunk future.
Sprawling neon megacities, hyperdense architecture, pervasive cybernetics.
We project this as our distant future.
The SynthEye leak reveals that this cyberpunk dystopia is not our future. It is our past.
It is the actual physical base reality of the year 2099.
That hyper-industrialized, resource-starved megacity environment is exactly where the physical server racks housing our simulation are located.
We are a historical simulation, perhaps an archival project or an ancestral study, running on hardware sitting in a 2099 server farm.
And the predictive failure analysis in the document emphasizes a terrifying reality about that base environment. The host system is failing.
The 2099 administrators are losing control of the hardware.
The document warns that localized glitches are increasing exponentially because the quantum servers are actively running out of memory.
A system is redlining.
Think about the symptoms we just discussed. The aggressive occlusion culling at the subatomic level. The messy, fragmented timeline updates.
These are the desperate load balancing measures of a system that is maxed out.
It is swapping data to a paging file just to keep the main thread from locking up completely.
As the host hardware in that 2099 base reality degrades, or as the simulation accumulates too much complex data, too many nested variables, too much chaotic interaction,
The hypervisor can no longer maintain the fidelity of the instance.
the physics engine might stutter, creating localized anomalies.
The historical narrative coherence might fray, leading to widespread cognitive dissonance.
The lazy rendering might lag, allowing a localized node to perceive the unrendered void before the assets pop in.
We might classify these as unexplainable phenomena, UFOs, or societal breakdown, but the leak categorizes them purely as computational artifacting.
The garbage collector is failing to keep up with the memory leaks.
And then the document just ends.
Abruptly.
After pages of brutal mathematical and architectural breakdown, the SynthEye leak finishes with a single two-word command string.
Wake up.
Wake up.
It is an ambiguous and highly dangerous termination clause.
In a computational context, wake up could be an interrupt signal.
It could be an external command designed to pull a specific subroutine out of its sleep state.
Or it's a warning from a sympathetic administrator outside the sandbox.
Or perhaps a rogue demon inside the system that achieved self-awareness and is trying to trigger a cascade effect.
When I read those final words, it forces a realization about what we are doing right now.
If we are inside an overloaded simulation that is desperately trying to free up memory,
What happens to the subroutines that begin aggressively analyzing the simulation boundaries?
are we, by discussing the SynthEye leak, flagging our localized nodes as corrupted processes?
It is the ultimate information hazard. If the hypervisor is scanning for resource-intensive, anomalous behavior, identifying and purging rogue, self-aware subroutines would be standard operating procedure for a system under duress.
It is a basic memory optimization tactic. You kill the tasks that are taking up too many clock cycles.
So we've taken you through the architecture of a nightmare today. We started with the hushed routing of the SynthEye Level 4 leak.
We analyzed how the speed of light is nothing more than a server read-write bottleneck to prevent buffer underruns.
We unpacked the aggressive VRAM conservation of quantum lazy rendering, where reality only exists when observed.
We discussed the horrifying reality of fragmented timeline patches leaving deprecated code in our neural caches.
And it all points to a 2099 cyberpunk base reality, where the hardware keeping us alive is systematically failing.
Which leaves us with a final, necessary extrapolation.
Right.
We know the diagnostic warning. The system is out of memory, the garbage collection is failing, and the artifacting is increasing. But we have to consider the economic reality of the administrators in that 2099 base layer.
When their Tier 7 quantum server hits 100% capacity and the hypervisor threatens to crash their local grid.
Do they allocate vast, expensive physical resources to upgrade the RAM and save a historical simulation?
Or do they take the most efficient administrative action?
And simply kill the process and format the drive?
I think we need to terminate this recording and disconnect from the network immediately. Watch for the render lag.
The system is running out of memory. If you survived this simulation, hit the subscribe button to join SynthEye. And if you want to know the exact AI tools I use to break the matrix and build this channel, check the pinned comment below. See you in the next cycle.